This Art of Allowing workshop was recorded in Houston, Texas on Saturday, the 5th day of January of the year 2002.
The idea of reversing age
rather than reversing age, instead replenish youth.
Replenish youth.
In other words, feel the difference in that.
Yes,
when
that's
you're reversing
wonderful.
age, you're pushing against what's not wanted. When you're allowing the vitality to continue to flow, that's something else altogether.
So here's the crux of the thing. I really believe that that is absolutely true, and that is something that I am doing, have done, will continue to do. But then there's just this little thing that says, I don't know anybody else that's lived, an unimaginable length of time, or had a baby when they were 80, or, this, that, and the other. And so I have to believe to feel good, or else I'll feel bad because I'm worried that I don't believe it. Do you see what I mean?
Well, what you're saying is, I'm wanting to find a belief that satisfies a desire that I hold by supporting it with other facts from other people, and I haven't been able to do that, so now I'm not a perfect vibrational match to what I'm desiring, and therefore I doubt it, and it's sort of a vicious circle, isn't it? See if you can find a softer way around this. In other words, what do you think makes you launch a desire that you're wanting to continue to rejuvenate?
Oh, because my life is just starting, and you talk about virtual reality, and I see myself walking up on that stage or some other stage, and I see how beautiful I am, and I see how full of light I am, and how much I have to give to the people sitting there, and how much I have to say, and I believe in that. And so I want to be here to do it.
Well, here's the reason that we're asking the question. Everything that you're speaking here is purely spoken from the standpoint of your inner being. In other words, you are an eternal being. You are an eternal being. Your light will always shine. And when you say, but I want my light to shine longer through this vessel, longer than normal, longer than even maybe I intended when I came forth into this physical body, longer than anybody else is doing, then you sort of get crossways of your own beliefs. And you can tell when you're crossways of your own beliefs because you don't get anywhere. You keep trying it and you don't get anywhere. So sometimes it is of value to take another stance. In other words, try to look at it from another perspective. When you think about life experience, it is all right here and now. In other words, you cannot live in your past and you cannot live in your future. So as you're living in your now and making the most of the now by allowing the fullest of the fullness and fullness, broadness, the allness that is you to flow through you in your now, that is living life to its optimum. Physical humans, we notice, are great believers in not enoughness, not enough money, not enough time, not enough land, not enough religious artifacts. In other words, you're fighting over this stuff as if it is limited when there is no limited supply of anything. And so when you feel the negative emotion that always comes when you worry about the shortness of your life, or when you worry that you're just upon the brink of so much that is wonderful and you don't want it to end, when you feel the negative emotion that always comes forth in response to that limited thought, stop and say to yourself soothingly, I am an eternal being. I will always exist. I will continue to thrive in different physical formats, but all of it is joyful and wonderful. Try to talk yourself out of your concern about that limitedness by accepting the broadness of who you really are. And the reason that is the approach we would take is because, as you said, when you say, I'm going to be the first or one of the first that lives in this body for 200 years and looks like I've only been here for 30 years, right in the middle of that thought, you contradict it with doubt. You flat out don't believe that because you can't find any evidence of anyone who has done that. And rather than scrambling around trying to find evidence, and we believe there is plenty of evidence of people who are thriving and living long and feeling good and who feel and appear to be youthful even in their very long years. We do not think that that is the approach that will ultimately take you to what you're reaching for. We think what you're reaching for is the conscious, in this body, realization of the eternalness of that which is you. Esther was talking to Jerry about this yesterday as she said, I think I have a glimmer of that because I feel how Abraham feels. I can feel the oldness of Abraham. I can feel how long Abraham has been present, and I can feel how they are pulsing through my body right here and now, but I can feel that whether my body is here or not, they will continue to pulse through. And Esther said, I can feel how as I align to that which they are, I will have that sensation of eternalness also. You get a sense of what we are talking about? Sometimes as Jerry and Esther are moving from city to city, they'll see some cities, like in New Orleans, where they just were, where Jerry went to high school there. And so he was eager to retrace some of his roots. He would say, let's go see if American Can Company is still there. That's where I worked, and there it was. The factory looked almost the same. It is being used for other things, but the structure is the same, and the big sign across the front of it was the same. And then he said, I lived on this street. Let's go see if the house is still there. And it was. And then he said, and I went to this school. Let's go see if the school is still there. And it was. Landmark after landmark. They were on the freeway on the last day that they were there, and Jerry said, the only thing I haven't found is the cultural center where I used to sing with the New Orleans Opera Association. I would like to see if I could find that today. And Esther is thinking, do you know what its name is? Do you know what street it is on? In other words, it is a very big city. And so they were following the navigational device in the car, and it told them to stay on the current road, and Esther thought that that meant to stay on Interstate 10, which is what she had been on, and it meant stay in this lane, which was another road altogether, and Esther took the wrong road. Or so it seemed, until they drove right past the cultural center, and Jerry said, there it is, that is the last thing that I wanted to see. Now what we're getting at here is, as they saw all of these buildings that had been there when Jerry was a youngster in high school, most of them now, even though they're still standing, are rather decrepit looking. In other words, they don't look like he remembered them. And there was this sort of feeling of nostalgia, this sort of longing for them to be bright and beautiful as they once were. And Esther would say, as they would get into one horrible-looking place after another, did it look like this when you were here? And Jerry would say, no, this is not the way that it was. It is essentially the way that it was, but this is not the way that it was. Now, here's what we're getting at. This physical environment, including the physical vessels that are your bodies, are a continual passing parade. There is a continuing restructuring of the elements of this time-space reality as they coalesce into the fashion of the creative thought. If you are trying to hold to any of the thought that is coalesced around the thought and make it more than it is, a temporary passing or a temporary reason for you to feel joy in your focused moment. In other words, utilize your moments to allow the spirit of that which is you to focus, but don't need the manifestations to stand as they are for you to be able to focus. You're getting a sense of what we're talking about? Be the inner spirit that is you and relish in the creative moment, but don't try to hold to anything that has been created in the moment, including your body. And when you find that place, there is peace beyond description, because then you accept that you are the eternal being that you are, and every moment is joyous as you are utilizing your now. Oh, Do you feel the power of the now? Do you get what now is? Can you feel the power of the focused now, where everything that you've been before is culminating into this consciousness and into these decisions and summoning this life force, and to the degree that you allow it in this moment, can you feel the everything of this now, you see?
Yes.
And so, rather than thinking about past and wanting to hold past longer and slow things down and stop the aging process, just revel in the power of now, you see. Because you can't stop time, and you won't stop the recycling process that is taking place upon this planet, nor would you want to. But you do not have to suffer the moving through time. In other words, every moment can be more wonderful than the moments before. We hear many of you say, I would not go back. And yet many of you, as you are on New Year's, on the satellite in the motorhome on New Year's Day, Jerry and Esther had playing in the background, and they watched plenty of it, a program from Great Britain, comedy, that just played on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And it is a woman, so it seems, who is hosting guests in her home, so it seems, and she has all of the celebrities coming through. And because it was so many years of so many celebrities, Esther would say, oh, look at that one, and oh, look at that one. Oh, that must have been a really long time ago. Look how good she looks. Look how good she looks. And by the end of the day, Esther wanted to turn the clock back 20 years at least so that she could look into the beautiful, youthful faces of all of these fading stars, so to speak. And we think that's what happens to so many of you, is that you find this place that you believe is the peak, or the point to which you are all reaching for. So you're yearning to get there, yearning to get there, yearning to get there. You're there, splat, then you're yearning to be back there, and yearning to be back there, and yearning to be back there. And there was only this little tiny bit of time where you were actually where you thought you wanted to be, and then you measure your life and everybody else's life by that brief little narrow window or standard of the peak of life experience. And we say, every moment of your experience is the peak of life experience, because this is where your powerful now is. This is where the desire is radiating from you and the allowing is being allowed by you. Yes.
Yes.